So welcome to the committee meeting, and it is 10 o'clock. And I'm trying to pull up my agenda, but the screen has taken over. So
if you, we could start with the regular Zoom etiquette.
Yeah, I think the etiquette, and then we'll call for public comment, and then we'll move into the review of the last meeting minutes.
Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Bank Grants Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We are using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you would like to comment during the meeting, please type "I have a comment" or "I have a question" in the chat, and a message will be sent to the host. Alternatively, you can also use the raise hand feature. In efforts of transparency for all those joining this public meeting, whether by phone or Zoom, we request that you refrain from having side conversations on chat about the content of the meeting. Again, the chat feature is utilized simply as a tool for you to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. A reminder that all Legal Services Trust Fund Commission and committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar website. A friendly reminder that this is the video conference and to please be aware of your surroundings. If you use your phone to dial into this meeting, please be sure your computer's microphone is on mute to avoid audio feedback issues. And lastly, while joining audio via computer is highly recommended, if an individual loses audio, they can call in separately using the Zoom conference number.
Thank you. And is there any public comment? Any public members that would like to speak? Okay, not.
And
yes.
Can we go back to roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was zipping through
worries.
too quickly.
I'll go ahead and start. Kim Savage.
Here.
Amin Al-Saraf. Absent. Jeff Ball.
Here.
Herman DeBose.
Here.
Jim Meeker.
Here.
Bob Planthold.
Here.
Rich Reines. And our liaisons, Selena Copeland. Bonnie Huff. Christine Gonog. Mark Tony. And State Bar staff. I am here. Dwan Nguyen.
Here.
Judy McManigal.
Here.
Brady Dewar. Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me try this again. Is there anybody who is on the phone, has joined the meeting, that would like to comment? Any members of the public?
I don't think there are any members of the public, but Bob is just so you know, Bob is on, I think on 2 devices probably. That's why we see his name twice. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you're really here.
Yes.
Good, good.
Does he get 2 votes? Because I'll log in 3 times.
Bob wouldn't
So-
try to do that.
I'm of two, let's put it this way, I'm of 2 minds about this.
Got it.
And Bob is also the newest committee member. This is your first Bank Grants committee meeting. Is that right, Bob?
Correct.
Yes. Bob was
And
added
first-
last year, so this is his first. So welcome.
Yes, it's great. It's great to have you. Having worked with you on a lot of other subjects, I'm really pleased you're joining us. We could use your perspective and your brain power and experience. So thank you for coming on.
And I will have some questions later about upcoming events. So thank you.
Of course. And I don't know if you all met Judy McManigal in our office. I think I introduced her at a commission meeting, but she's been with us for about 3 months now. And Judy was a practicing attorney for over 15, 20 years. So we're really pleased to have her. And she's really has been helping out with the Bank Grants Committee more, the data stuff. And we can talk more about that towards the end when we talk about the next.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. Good morning,
Well,
everyone.
Welcome,
So
Judy, and thank you. Thank you.
And Kim, this is my first meeting. I know you don't like
I'm
to
sorry, I
think of
didn't
me
know that,
as a
Jeff.
rookie. I am not a lawyer, although I did play one on TV, so that counts. But
Yes, I remember watching you previously.
yes.
Whoa.
So anyhow, it's a pleasure to serve on your committee.
Yes, well, it's great. It's great to have you again, you know, experience, brain power, perspective. I think most of you know that Jeff was on the Trust Fund Commission before, and I think he was roped back in, which is wonderful for us.
My apologies, Jeff, because you've been around. We've been meeting with you. So I thought you had attended the last Bank Grant Committee meeting, but I apologize.
Okay, did everybody have a chance to look at the meeting summary from November 13th? There any comments on that? That was attached to the agenda and available through the State Bar. I have to say, I really appreciated the clarity of the note taking. It's very helpful. Since we don't meet that often, it's really nice to have a summary and to remind us of what we had previously reviewed. So unless there are any comments, edits, corrections, would someone like to move to approve them?
I move. This is Jim.
Okay. I'm happy to second, unless someone else should.
All right, I'll take roll call. Kim Savage,
Yes.
Amin Al-Sarraf, Jeff Wall.
I have a question. Do you have enough, since I was not there for the meeting, my preference is to abstain. But if it's a matter of having enough votes for the quorum, I'm happy to vote in favor.
I believe this has come up in other meetings that you don't have to abstain even if you weren't
Okay. I have
present,
reviewed.
but
I have
But you-
This is
reviewed.
Bob Plainhold. I'm the one who raised this, and even though not attending, you can, if you will, vote if you wish, because you trust the judgment of those who were there and follow their vote. If you wish, you can abstain or you can vote following the others. Your choice.
I appreciate the clarification. I have reviewed it. It was very helpful to get up to speed, and I will take that leap of faith in all of you and vote to affirm.
Herman DeBose,
Yeah, yes.
Jim Meeker,
Yes.
Bob Planthold,
Yes.
and Rich Rhinus. Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Christina, I think I now turn it over to you to deal with
Let's talk about
miscellaneous
carryovers,
items.
carryovers and budget revisions.
You know, Christine, before you talk about budget revisions carryover, can I just give a couple brief sentences since we have two committee members, and we might have already, so this might be overkill, but just to give you a little bit of context on when we received the funding and where we're at with the funding. So in 2015 and 2016, the State Bar received 3 distributions two from Bank of America and 1 from Citi through national settlements between the United States Department of Justice and those 2 banks. This is kind of following up on the fallout with the foreclosure crisis back in that era. So every IOLTA program in the country received a piece of the settlement agreement, and it was based on the number of people below 125% in that particular state. And so California being California, we received the largest distribution. The settlement agreement itself is very, very lengthy, hundreds of pages, but the only really prohibition for this grant funding is really they didn't go into a lot of great detail on how we have to distribute it. But the main restriction is that it has to go to fund community redevelopment legal assistance and foreclosure prevention legal assistance. So the foreclosure prevention is really like straightforward, run-of-the-mill reverse mortgages, loan modifications, and so forth. Things that our programs have been doing for a while and continue to do. So that was really straightforward. The commission just kind of adopted that very traditional view of foreclosure prevention. The community redevelopment piece was, there's kind of some standing definition of it, but there's not one like controlling authority, should I say. So the commission decided to kind of adopt a really broad interpretation of it. And so they funded projects that really, if a program can identify kind of a systemic issue and had a systemic approach to it, it could be considered community development. So it's not really, it goes beyond kind of your traditional definition of community development. That's really like based on like affordable housing, that type of development. So you'll see many kind of novel projects that fall under that. So we've distributed, I would say, the vast majority of that. There's some funding left that Christine's going to talk about whether we should distribute, have an RFP, but the vast majority of the funding has been distributed. This agenda item that's coming to you right now that Christine's going to talk about, we're in the midst of some of the big grant projects. Some of them have already been in completion because we've had many rounds of distribution already. But this is the latest one we're in year 2 of a 3-year grant. So I hope that provides Bob and Jeff a little bit more context on big grants.
Thank you.
Let me just add a couple of comments as a committee member. First of all, the heavy lifting went on for quite a while. In terms of the grant application language and then reviewing everything, all of the grant applications. We had many more on the community redevelopment side than on the mortgage and lending side. The opportunity to have a broad definition on community redevelopment allowed us to get some really terrific proposals, very creative, just really wonderful to read, which made the decision making really, really tough. But I think the committee took their job really seriously. It was a lot of effort, but for a really great result. And of course, we'd be happy to see more money coming in. a lot of the projects were ones that it would be terrific if they could continue on. So that's just kind of a little bit of an editorial comment about the process. And the staff was great. It was a tremendous amount of work. And I think with a really good result.
And I guess I'll just add one more thing in that when we received this funding, I mean, it was one-time funding, but we had hoped at the time that would be kind of a vanguard for other settlement fundings. But with the former administration, they changed legislation on the federal level to prohibit this type of us receiving part of settlements. But, with the new administration, we'll see what we can do because this has been a great source of revenue for some other states. Texas, for example, have it by statute at the state level that they receive some form of, from certain types of settlements at the state level that go to IOLTA funding. I don't know we're quite there in terms of a state statutory change, but hopefully at the federal level, we, fingers crossed that we might be able to see some more money coming down in the next few years, because it's been so helpful with especially with the drop of IOLTA funding that the source of revenue has been there.
Great. And I'll start with our carryover and mention that the carryover for Watsonville Law Center is part of the 2018 to 2020 grant distribution, which was the largest, and that was about 28.5 million distributed for that particular distribution. And so 2020 is the end of that grant period. And for those of you that were there, we approved quite a number of carryovers into 2020. We're looking at a late carryover for Watsonville. And if you had the chance to look at their explanation, they had a number of issues come up, and they were COVID related, specifically to their staffing capacity, but also, and I had a lengthy discussion with their executive director about this, that they contract out their general administrative services, and it's to a healthcare provider. And typically, you know, in any other year, they've never had a problem, but because of COVID and the pandemic, the healthcare provider was swamped and didn't get to helping them with their fiscal needs until later, which prompted this late request, because they didn't know exactly where they stood in time to make a request back in November. They did contact me in December, so it was a little bit late. And we had another meeting back in January, and they provided a very lengthy explanation, even more so than what I shared with you about what they're trying to do and what they hope to accomplish if approved to carry over their funds into 2021. So the staff recommendation, which does follow along the lines of what this committee approved, to take a flexible approach to carryover requests. The staff recommendation is to approve, even though this request did come late, just given the extenuating circumstances. And I should have noted, this is the only request on this agenda item that the committee has to approve. The other request below for Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County was below the 25.
Bob has his hand up, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Bob, go ahead.
So during your oral summary here, you said you had a talk with the executive director. Well, yes. We got a note a couple of weeks ago that she left. So who are you referring to specifically? Because it seemed when she left, she was saying things would be in good hands with Duan and other staffers by name.
No, I'm sorry, the executive director of Watsonville Law Center.
Okay. And then secondly, has it ever been the practice that a 3-year grant allows, let's say, unspent money likely to be normally spent in the first year to be carried over to the second year, and then first and second year money carried over to the third year? I'm raising it because while 2020 was a COVID year, 2018 wasn't, 2019 wasn't. Do we have any idea why there was unspent money from those earlier years?
Christine, let me take that question broadly to talk about this organization specifically. So when the commission made grants for bank grants, and as well as some of our other discretionary grants, because some of these projects are new, Bob, we had communicated to programs that there's a lot of flexibility, because sometimes, for our in terms of administration, we like to cut a check equally between like the 3 years, or if it's 2 years, and divide it. But practically speaking, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it takes a little bit, sometimes they have hiccups in hiring at the front end. So, and sometimes the first year or even the second year, they're ramping up, and they might not be spending at the level that's divided by 3. And so the commission's already has always been pretty flexible because they're new projects. So with that, yes, it's actually pretty common to have carryover requests from year 1 to year 2, and from year 2 to year 3 as well.
Okay, thank you.
Because of our limitations, our administration, is easier for us to cut that check equally. But practically speaking, programs don't always spend it that way because of like staffing issues and ramp ups for new projects.
All right, good, thank you.
And just to add on to that, when it's a year-to-year carryover in the grant period. It's technically a budget revision as opposed to a true carryover. Our carryovers are happen at the very end of the grant period.
Okay, that's also helpful to know.
So, and that actually leads us back to Santa Barbara, which is a 2020 to 2022 grant, and they are requesting a budget revision. And actually, we approved a budget revision for them back in November for the same purpose. Their subgrantee didn't think that they were going to spend the amount budgeted, and so they were approved for carrying over more for the subgrantee into year 2. And it turned out that they had kind of a surge in November and December, and are basically essentially reverting back. They were able to spend more than they had planned. So this budget revision is to put back some additional funding for the subgrantee into year 1. And this, the percentage was just over 11%, and staff approved this. So the second one is for informational purposes only. So before this committee is whether or not to approve Watsonville Law Center's carryover into 2021.
Christine and or Dwan or both, can you give us just a brief summary of what the Watsonville project is?
Thank you. That was my question.
Yes, and I should have.
No, it's fine. You can probably get back to the project summary a lot more quickly than I can. I just wanted to know what it was in relationship to the narrative that they have set out, which is, I mean, narrative is very helpful, but trying to think about how realistic it is.
I was trying to understand how it incorporates with the health center, and I'm assuming it fits more of the community development definition.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
If you can just give me one second.
Yeah.
I believe a piece of it was a medical legal partnership, Christine, but can you confirm? I think that was the thrust of it.
Sorry, this is.
No, that's okay.
Just a minute.
Herman, was that one that you reviewed? I didn't review Watsonville. Do you remember if you reviewed it?
I don't think
It's a
so.
while ago.
Yeah, I have my papers here.
Geez, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate so-called old school where you go through paper files rather than scroll through screens.
I mean, I know we can go on Smart Simple and pull it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is
No apologies are necessary at all.
I don't know why it's taking so long.
I'm like almost certain it's a medical legal partnership, but
No, I didn't do Watsonville. It wasn't one of mine.
That is really impressive that you can go back all the way.
Oh, yeah, I have them.
to
I have them all.
2017.
I have them all here. I just have files and files of paper for the state bar.
Okay, I'm on Smart Simple, even though I really am old school, Bob.
That's you're getting there faster than I am.
Well, it's pure luck.
I'm on it too. So they're going to expand legal services to improve safe, healthy, affordable housing for low-income children with asthma and other chronic conditions in the Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito counties. It's an affordable housing project, but how they get at it, it is a medical legal partnership. They're going to be providing services for families of medically vulnerable children. They're going to do surveying housing conditions, and then their partner organizations will be referral and doing some policy work as well.
Okay, that's very helpful background to understand their need to carry over. And I would, Madam Chair, make a motion to approve their request to carry over as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. So that was Jeff who moved and Bob who seconded.
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Great. I'll do roll call. Kim,
Yes.
Amin, Jeff,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Rich. Okay. Great, motion passes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, and now we'll move into more of the meat of the meeting for today, which is to discuss and approve the timing of the final funding from the bank grant settlement funds. And we'll move into that. So if for those of you who were not at the last meeting, we did briefly discuss this at the end of our meeting back in November. And the staff recommendation then, as it is now, is to wait on releasing the final RFP. And given our brief discussion last November, that was seemed to be the leaning of the committee, but we wanted to defer to this meeting to discuss it a little bit more fully. As I noted here, our recommendation is not to release in 2021 for projects to commence in 2022. And the amount that we're looking at is approximately 4.8. And the reason that it's approximate is because there is interest involved, and then also the administrative expenses throughout the year. So we're looking around 4.8 at this point. And so I'll briefly go over a little bit more background and the reasonings for our recommendation. And then just a reminder for those new to the committee and also for the committee, just an overview of the RFP process. And then just some focus areas and goals possibly for the next RFP. Okay, so we discussed a little bit of this already, but to date, the commission has allocated approximately 47.3 million. And you'll see that we had funded 141 projects. As I mentioned already, there's approximately 4.8 million. And with that, the committee had recommended saving this remaining portion to use to respond to disasters like wildfires and earthquakes.
And let me just give a little bit more context to that. So when this committee made the recommendations to the commission a few years ago, 2017, 2018, the thrust, I mean, they distributed the vast majority of that. At that time is the $28.5 million. But this committee felt strongly that we shouldn't spend all of the funding, because at that time it was the first kind of series of wildfires in California. I don't know if you all remember Herman, Kim, but there's some discussion that it might be prudent to save some money to see and have this be kind of emergency response in case there was more relief that we could provide for low-income Californians.
And so therefore that would fit within the definition of community development?
It would fit into the definition of community development. There, at the time, the committee made that recommendation to the commission. There wasn't a formal like motion that was made, so you're not committed to that, but that was kind of the impetus in terms of saving the money. So you're not beholden to that, but we wanted to give you that historical that context.
Thank you.
So what's the
This
time
is
frame for
Bob.
the emergencies?
There wasn't. It was just, I remember Judge Selman has said in a meeting that maybe with everything that was happening, and if you'll recall at that time, there was legislation on the table about perhaps cuts to LSC funding. So we didn't know how that would play out, and unfortunately, there wasn't severe cuts that came about. But there was some concern in the community in terms of if LSC was going to be cut drastically, maybe this could help support programming. That didn't happen, but still, with the wildfires, as we've seen the last few years, they have been. But that doesn't mean that you have to direct it towards disaster relief. But that was kind of the reasoning why I'm not distributing all the funding at that time.
Bob, you have your hand raised.
Yes, that third bullet wording, such as wildfires and earthquakes. I understand the concept. I agree with reserving the concept of funds for emergency purposes. I'm concerned about the specificity of the examples. And the reason is, we know from recent experience in the past 2 or 3 years, there are some people who claim or cite California as particularly negligent, hazardous, under-responsive to climate management, forest management. Is there a way we can rephrase that, like for emergency response to greatly increased standard hazards as well as unexpected hazards?
And Bob, this wasn't a formal motion. This is like us just giving you historical background, and it's really it's really the legal services that's related to any of this kind of disaster relief work. But yeah, sure, we can rephrase it, but there wasn't a formal motion that was passed.
I'm uncomfortable with that even being in a staff preparation memo, and therefore I'm looking at this as a draft rather than as a final staff memo on background. You never know what sort of person is going to come out figuratively of the woodwork and claim, we're expecting, or, oh, this is a plot that we're actually going to allow wildfires to happen. I'm sorry, but just some of my political dealings, I deal with squirrels, if you will. And so I prefer some milder generic phrasing about an increase in magnitude.
Bob,
Okay.
we could strike that last phrase if it makes you feel more comfortable when we present it to the commission. We can just take out such as wildfires and earthquakes, just response to disasters. And leave it.
I think that, I appreciate your concern, Bob. If we wanted to leave it in there, we could revise it to, legal services necessary. Something, natural disasters or something like that. It was just that those were the natural disasters that came to people's mind.
Again, phrasing it as legal services, because I could read this that we might provide, we could provide money for shelters.
No, it is legal services. So that's the one restriction in the, the two restrictions that has to be community development legal assistance and foreclosure prevention legal assistance. So we apologize if that wasn't abundantly clear, but we'll add the phrasing legal assistance.
It could be changed. Funds were reserved for emergency legal services in response to natural disasters.
Yeah,
good.
that's
I like that.
accurate. Yeah.
Okay, so it's funds were reserved for legal services in response
Relay
to
the-
natural disasters,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
perfect.
Good.
Okay,
Is it
Okay.
still restricted to community development?
It has to be. That's the one, that's the main restriction.
Hmm.
There needs to be a nexus with community redevelopment or foreclosure prevention legal assistance.
I took notes and I'll change that after the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
it was not a misstatement on Christine's part, though. That's how we articulated it, but I get the need to put a kind of a cleaner public face on it.
And again, you're not beholden to that. We just want to give you the historical. When you actually go to release an RFP, and you'll make a determination of what the criteria, and and then there'll be a formal motion and a memo and all the formality that goes with that.
Good.
So we just want to move into some of the discussion that we've had and want to revisit today. So I'm actually going to start at the bottom of this list. Back in November, after our committee meeting, we had reached out to LAC to see what their preliminary feelings were regarding releasing an RFP for this year. And they informally did a poll of their board, which admittedly is a pretty small sample. It's not their whole membership. But of their board in that preliminary poll, 2/3 were fine waiting, and 1/3 said, and these are of those that responded, 1/3 said releasing this year. But in our conversations with LAC, part of the reason that we were in general agreement about waiting was for these other areas that programs are spending down the homelessness prevention funds, as most of this committee participated on the homelessness prevention committee for releasing the $31 million for the projects that are starting in 2021. Programs are also still spending down the $20 million for their projects that started either in 2019 or 2020, and those have to be expensed fully by June of this year. So there is additional funding out there. And then in addition to all of the carryovers that were approved for IALTA and EAF, that programs are spending down money over this year and into next year. And then also allowing programs time to think about projects going forward and what the new model is going to look like. And we're still not sure about what that's going to look like. There's still a lot of unknowns about the pandemic, when it's going to end. I think, as we're all very hopeful with the vaccines, there's still a lot of unknowns about what's going to happen going forward. And so it feels a little early to be able to plan for projects, for new projects with this money. And
I have a couple other items to add that we didn't add to this PowerPoint, but there's a big development that's happening right now. There's a request at the legislature to increase the equal access funding by $20 million a base. There's already legislation, there's already a bill that's proposed. We don't know how likely or not likely it's going to be passed. We're gonna hear from Selena on Friday in terms of like what she thinks the likelihood. So that's a pretty big kind of request. So the bank grant money is $4 or $5 million, though that's not a small amount. We think it may be better spent revisiting perhaps next year to see if this year, what a lot of these unknowns that Christine's talking about, and also because we have some additional funding that might be coming this year, we think that might be better used if we wait. The other thing is with the foreclosure piece, and part of the CARES Act, there's some protections right now that's not quite similar as the moratoriums on evictions, but we're not seeing kind of the wave of foreclosures yet that we may see when those restrictions will be lifted. So this money may be better spent once we see how that plays out. And I see Jeff nodding his head. I don't know if you have any other insights into any of that, but everybody that we've talked to, it's kind of a waiting game right now. So
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. We're not seeing a lot of activity. I think a lot of the direct government assistance has gone a long way in preventing some of that. And there are restrictions placed on lenders, and most lenders are not taking action anyhow, where they have situations. We've all been trying to provide modifications as much as possible. Nobody wants to foreclose on a property right now, I can tell you. So I think that assessment is correct, but there are a lot of big unknowns down the road in terms of how ultimately the impact of all of the shutdowns and the increased levels of government spending, how all of that's going to play out in terms of the market. So I think it is fair to pause to wait and see what the effects will be.
yeah, and as Kim mentioned before, we've always funded more community redevelopment projects than we have foreclosure. And we had heard from programs, there's a bit of a slowdown in terms of foreclosure the past years, particularly with, you know, the clients that we assist 100 below 125%. That may change. And so depending how things play out in the next few years, we might want to pivot with the remaining of the money to more foreclosure versus community development. I mean, we kind of just don't know, but that would be one reason why it would be more prudent to wait a year or two to see.
I'm fully supportive of waiting for all of the reasons that have been expressed. There are so many unknowns, and as we know from the number of requests to carry over, programs have undergone a lot of difficulties and are making a lot of adjustments to, so releasing another RFP just is actually burdensome at this point in time. And it's not very much money and a whole lot of work.
That's actually a perfect segue into my next slide, which is just kind of an overview and reminder of what the RFP process does look like, and that it typically takes about 6 to 9 months. And we would be developing the funding criteria, and for the first time for this committee, we would be developing a scoring rubric to go along with it. And unlike the HP funds, this distribution plan for the remaining approximately 4.8 million would have to go to the Board of Trustees for approval in accordance with the functional matrix that was approved in January 2019. So, and then of course we have the actual release to the programs, and just as kind of a side note with the HP funding, you know, we did that in a very short amount of time, but we heard back from a lot of programs how difficult it was to pull a project together that quickly. Bob, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, well, question, comment, suggestion. Process typically takes about 6 to 9 months. Is there any template that staff have for all of our grant programs, applicable to all of our grant programs, about A, timeline, and B, specific process steps that could be, if you will, articulated in public so that a potential grantee could say, gee, we applied so long ago, or somebody in the media says, wait a minute, Congress just approved this money, or the legislator and the governor approved this money. How come it takes so long to get out? I know a lot of legislators wonder, is there any way we can show that 6 to 9 months is prudent, not just for this, but for any program?
Bob, it really kind of depends on the stream of funding. As you recall, with the first HP funding that we received in 2019, there was a hard spend down provision, and there was an expectation that was communicated from the legislature to the state bar and to the commission that we had to get the funding out in a month or two. And so the formula funding flew out of the door. We expedited that process, but you know, we don't always have that prohibition. And the last round of HP funding, we didn't have that prohibition, though there was still an expectation that we had to get that out pretty quickly. So it really kind of depends. With this funding, there isn't kind of that spend down provision, But because we know that there's still a lot of processes and steps that are involved, when there aren't those kind of external kind of requirements, even with the state bar process, we're saying it takes about 6 or 9 months.
I think, Bob, are you also getting at the desire to avoid kind of reinventing the wheel each time?
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree with you. I think that would be incredibly helpful to the staff, as well as the commission, as well as the applicants and funding recipients, if we had some sort of template. Is not the right term exactly, because the grants all have different purposes, but some sort of framework that could be used, and then specialization would be brought in, special language and terms based on what the application is. I mean, I sort of hate to bring it up.
That's codification, Kim.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's codification.
Right.
We have a topic that's coming up later this year in terms of what specifically for discretionary grants and the scoring rubric itself, but really like the process, and that's part of codification. But I would encourage you to, you know, and they're more guidelines than the state bar rule, because once you put it out as a rule, then we're going to be beholden to that, and that doesn't give the commission nor staff a lot of flexibility and programs.
I wasn't really thinking of it as a rule, but I was thinking of more as a tool that could be used in the process to build on that. Yeah, another rule, probably not a good thing, because it becomes inflexible.
I didn't envision a rule. I'm looking at this as a way to, if you will, get the media and legislature off the backs of staff. Why are you so slow in getting this money out? Would be the type of.
That's pretty political, Bob. I mean, even with HD funding, with the second round of money, you know, they listened to our concerns, so there wasn't a spend down provision, but there was still an expectation to you know, get that money out of the door pretty quickly. You know, a lot of times we don't have control over the timeline, and that's why we have to move quickly. You'll hear about the provisional licensee grants on Friday. That's also another grant program that we've designed, and we had to move very quickly on. So
I would also point out, I don't want to get ahead of all of Christine's slides here. I still want to give her the opportunity to get through all this so we can absorb, but somewhere in here we should point out that over 90% of the funds has been distributed already. So we're just down to less than 10% here at the very end.
Yeah,
I think that's an important point that should be in these.
Christine.
Yes, thank you. Good, great point, Jeff. And I think that's probably something that I'll add more towards the beginning, that we really are at the final RFP release, and it isn't for very much of the total. But before I move on, I know that Jim mentioned that he had a question on the scoring rubric.
Yeah, scoring rubrics are fairly new to the commission. If my memory serves me correctly, during the Appendix I review, there was an outside consultant who was very critical of the Trust Fund Commission on 2 points in particular. One was the Reboot Committee, the other was the Bank Grants Committee. And in specific, the Bank Grants Committee, he was critical in that there was no documentation on by what criteria we allocated our grant funding, our discretionary grant funding. And in particular, this guy, his background was more academic. And of course, he's used to the Department of Justice granting process, where they use scoring rubrics and teams to actually rank different grant proposals. And my question is, so now that we've been doing these scoring rubrics for about a year, or a little less, or a little more, I mean, what's the Board of Trustees' response to this? Are they happy with this? Are they still want to do?
I can actually answer that because we just had a Board of Trustees meeting yesterday to approve the provisional licensee grants that the commission delegated authority to XCOM. So XCOM is working with staff on a proposal, and part of it is a scoring rubric that we did share with the Board of Trustees, and they were really pleased by it. They were pleased by the transparency and the consistency. I did note for them something that you had noted, Jim, that we need to go through kind of several iterations to kind of improve on the lessons learned. So this is kind of the third iteration, this new grant program, and that we will be further refining the process and the rubric itself. And so they were pleased to hear that we were open, and that the transparency factor, which I think that, personally, I think the transparency factor is the most beneficial. The consistency factor, I think it's a work in progress.
Okay, so but by definition, if you're going to develop these rubrics, then that is going to create a lag in terms of how quickly you can get these funds out.
Exactly. And that's why we think the 6 to 9 months, just how it, with the HP rubric, it was developed in a shorter amount of time. And I think had we had more time, it would have been a more developed and sophisticated rubric. So we'll take that and we'll learn. And that's why we think the process is going to take 6 to 9 months at the very least.
Christine,
Okay.
back to you.
Oops. Now I'm jumping ahead. So, we did want to kind of get some initial ideas down, just thinking through what we might consider doing with this final RFP release. And we've basically already touched on this, but just furthering what the staff's recommendation is, and that's really to seek out more community feedback and follow any major developments, as the months go on, and track the legal issues to help to help us develop what that final RFP should be, as opposed to rushing through something.
And these are really preliminary, just to know, this is just something that, they're underdeveloped, but just to give you a sense of what we could and focus in an RFP. But again, like Christina was saying, we would want to do a lot more research and see kind of the developments, and also seek some feedback from the community before we actually, went to present a proposal to you.
Yeah, so just very, very broadly, what we were looking at was we could use, and again, really emphasizing what Jeff was saying, this is Jeff and Kim, this is only $4.8 million. So it's a pretty small amount of funding. So potentially building on projects and initiatives that might already be in place to proactively plan for, I have it down and I can always change it, what the wording that Bob mentioned for disasters. And then also, because of how programs have had to pivot because of COVID-19, looking at technology-based approaches, a lot of programs, in addition to having to really quickly move to remote services, we've heard that programs are interested in keeping some of the way that they're presenting their services remotely, because they are reaching new clients, different clients. But that's still a work in progress, as we mentioned before, trying to figure out the new normal. But we have heard from some programs that some of the changes that they have made, they want to keep beyond COVID. So exploring that a little bit more, and how we can use technology-based approaches and fund those. And then also, as we kind of mentioned before as well, the potential spike in foreclosures. We don't know if there's going to be one. Again, why we think we should wait and do more research and see what's coming down the road. But we could focus this money towards foreclosures in the future.
Christine, can I ask a question? How are you defining community? Those who provide services or those who receive services?
I think we were envisioning our programs, our grantees. We've never surveyed, say, the clients that they serve. It's just, I think, out of ease and it's easier to get that information through them. And that's what we're envisioning.
Well, then when you say, well, then when I see the word community, I think of maybe those who receive services and those who provide services. So
Yeah, we probably should have said legal aid community.
Yeah, legal services
Legal
community.
services community, yeah.
A lot of the programs, Herman, do on their own survey clients on their level of satisfaction with the services. But yeah, I think we might want to tweak that language.
is any of that information shared as to how those who receive services feel about those providing services?
Well, they have their evaluations. And I can't remember, Christine, do we require them to evaluate for big grant programs in the past? I know that they have to submit evaluations, but I don't know if we require them to like survey their own clients.
I don't believe that we require them to, but through the evaluations, we do hear back of what clients have said and evaluations that they have conducted, but I don't think that it's a requirement.
Do you
I
think
think-
it's something that should be?
I think we should consider it, but we could, and I guess we could talk about that when we develop the new RFP. And this is something, Herman, I know you've raised in the HP committee in terms of like what the evaluation specifically should be and what, you know, what we are requiring and expecting.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a bit more.
We do require something extra in
We require
in
evaluations.
in the HP.
Well, we require evaluations, but we don't spell out what that means. And I know with the HP funding, we all kind of had a different expectation of it. So I think we should be on the same page and then communicate that to the
Well,
applicants.
I'll be comfortable if you just clarify what community means. And I think Kim said the legal services community,
Yeah,
rather than just community so broadly.
Yeah. I think you're right.
So I have a question regarding the remaining $4 million. Does that have to be distributed through an RFP? It is.
Hmm.
Oh,
So
that's a good question. No, it
So-
does not have to be.
okay.
It's just we need a distribution plan. So maybe we should tweak that language. It doesn't need to be an RFP because as you
Right.
recall with the 28.5, part of it went out as RFP and part of it went out through a modified IOLTA formula.
considering how small the amount is and how many programs received bank grants, I think 141 according to Christine's earlier slide. I mean, I think we should consider whether we could use a formula approach to the grantees. The idea of doing another RFP for $4 million.
That's burdensome.
Yes, I agree.
Well-
And then the other part was, can it be tagged on to another future RFP? Not really I guess you'd have to sort of roll it in. That's probably not permissible. But anyway, I just think that something other than an RFP for
You're right. And it doesn't have to be an RFP. It's really like the distribution plan for the remaining amount of money. And
Okay.
this is also a thought that I remember Judge Seligman had raised, like, it has to go out to community redevelopment and foreclosure, but could the state bar and the commission design something that's like, provides kind of that infrastructure support for programs? So we could think of it like really novel, starting up some type of support with it. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but maybe there's a project that the commission and the state bar could support to provide support for legal services. So we
Right,
could think of it in those terms too. A project that we build to
Right. So
Yeah.
we can tweak the title of this and then tweak the community language
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
slide.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is Bob. I wanted to add in something. I ask staff to consider some minimum amount of any allocation of an unspent money about such as 4.8 million. You say formula, and yet I would say if by formula a whole bunch of grantees get 20,000 each, that's almost irrelevant. I
Yeah,
think there's
I
got to
agree.
be a minimum distribution amount, and that I'll leave it at that because then I don't want to get into micromanaging or suggesting staff, except like again, I'm trying to reduce burden on you by saying minimum amount. I'll leave it
No,
at
we
that.
had
Thank you.
minimum, Bob, with one of our previous distribution of a $50 million, sorry, $50,000 minimum, because we thought that could
Okay.
give you half an FT. But you know, I think if we're gonna wait, then we should just wait, and then when we revisit, we'll have like the menu of options instead of jumping gun
Sure.
down and trying to pre.
I'm not suggesting minimum now, just saying consider establishing a minimum.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We support that. I mean, I know Kim and I have talked about that many times, and I think we should have a minimum as well as a maximum is the other.
Okay.
Let me ask a question. If we don't use an RFP, then what will be the process for distributing these resources to make sure that everybody has an equal chance?
So that would be in the
Yes, we got
development
figured.
of the distribution plan. So, you know, it really is the distribution plan, and it's not an RFP. You're correct, Kim, in pointing that out. And that design, that's why we think it's going to be a minimum of 6 to 9 months, depending on how complicated or how much it's in design. It'll be in this commission, this committee to kind of lay out the details and the distribution plan. And then we then present it to the commission, then the commission presents it to the board of trustees. So it's a multi-step process.
So will we meet at some other point with your guidance on what this
Yeah, so
distribution plan will
what we
look
would
like?
do, what we would do is keep an eye on developments and bring back kind of major developments. And then when you think is like a good time, and we would then do further research and present to you kind of a menu of options, 3, 4, whatever, 5 options, and then you let us know that this
Okay.
kind of the direction. We can develop one of them, we can develop 2 of them, you could see, but yeah, we'd be working with you. Staff would provide the legwork, the research, would package it, and you provide us the direction that you want to go in.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I'm concerned about is that there's a lot of money out there currently for things like eviction defense and foreclosure. Not only our previous bank grants, but also the homeless grants. A lot of that money was going to eviction prevention. The same thing with Shriver grants. But one of the things that I rarely see in these proposals, but I think is important, are people who are trying to increase the low-income housing stock, which seems to be on a decline, and especially up in the north where the fires were. There's nobody, and that takes longer term.
Well, a lot of our projects do that, Jim, if you'll recall from the past distribution. A lot of the projects that we funded do that and do it in an amazing job. Like there was the Inner City Law Center project where they were able to pass a local measure that was able to garner a lot of money in the development of affordable housing. And we also funded a CRLAF project, California Rural Legal Systems Foundation, that was developing affordable housing. But you're right, and that it takes that. Those are the types of projects that doesn't take a year or two. It takes many years.
Many years, right?
Many
A lot of work on housing elements.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And I think
we have funded that.
Yeah.
Jim makes an excellent point, but you're right. It is the cost and the time provisions on those projects is pretty extreme and probably beyond the scope of where we would want to be directly involved. I am on the board of the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco, and we do an extensive amount of work in supporting projects, financing projects. And, that's where there's a lot of the financial firepower to really help with that issue, Jim, in trying to get more affordable housing in California. And a lot of work is being done in those areas that you referenced where the wildfires were up north.
And just not to belabor the point, but in urban areas, it can take 10 years for a nonprofit to cobble together all of the funding source puzzle pieces before there's even a shovel in the ground. So, Jeff must know that from his experience, and I know it from mine with clients. It's just, so it is terrific to support this, to help nurture that, but it goes on a long ways.
Yeah, my point, Kim, is that we've got, staying to the true purpose of this funding, and that's with the legal aid. Right. There is need beyond what we're able to provide. And I think to try to expand, while I fully agree with Jim, and that's an area I'm very passionate about and doing a lot of work with in another capacity, it's just too big, too complex for this to be taken on.
Yeah, and legal services programs are not housing developers. That's a
Right.
whole other world. And why we have tried to, that was one of our goals, was to connect those two universes because they're not very connected. You know, the kind of the jury's out on whether we are having any success with that. So I guess we should try to let Christine get back to moving us through the slides.
No, we're right on track. Just given all of the discussions, if we're ready to vote on what we want to do going forward, we can do that, or if there were other questions.
Are we ready to move forward with the motion?
I'll move that, but I suggest we clarify, is it fiscal year 2021 or calendar year 2021? I don't know that we've got differences between our fiscal year and a calendar year, but
we
even if they're the,
release on a
even if
calendar
they're the
year, but we
same.
can, sorry, Bob,
Even
we
if they're
release
the
on a
same,
calendar year, but we can specify and say January 2022.
please. So I'll move that with the addition of calendar year. Thank you.
How does, me question, how does all of this discussion we had just had relate to this particular motion? Does some of the changes that we suggested, like, for example, community, is all of that will be encompassed
It's
within?
not in the motion. And then, this motion is what will happen practically speaking, because you're not actually releasing anything this year or suggesting. We're going to report it out to the commission, but they don't have to approve your recommendation because you're not, they would approve, say, if you had a distribution plan or,
Okay.
if you're moving forward. But no, this is just for our record keeping.
So then we'll come back and look at a distribution plan and definition of community and all of that.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I just want to make sure we're clear on the motion here, and it looks like Christine's trying to make changes as we speak, so I want to give
Is
her
there any
that
other changes?
opportunity.
We just added the January.
Should I,
What, is it calendar year 2021? Is that the clarification that you'd like, Bob?
Yeah, well, calendar year or fiscal year, we ought to specify which year we're talking about for both 2021 and 2022. Oh, okay, so commence in January 22, so calendar, good, thank you.
I don't think you need the calendar because the thing is, like, what if we're not beholden to that? We're just saying we're not going to release funding in January 2022.
Yeah.
I think
I was
that,
gonna say, so that whole phrase could be eliminated then, releasing an RFP until January 2022 or later.
no, I think it's actually cleaner, if I may, not releasing an RFP in 2021 for funding to commence in January 2022. I think that's the cleanest.
Okay, all right.
So are you fine with that as a motion, Bob?
Yes, I'll
Okay,
take that
then
as acceptable.
Okay, then I will second.
all right, great. So Bob moved and Jeff seconded. I'll do roll call. Kim,
Yes.
Amin, Jeff,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
and Rich. Okay, motion passes. Okay, great. So next, we'll be talking about scheduling the next committee meeting. And Juan, did you want to?
Yeah, so because we're not releasing an RFP this year, the only thing that we have would be outstanding for this year is if we have budget modification and carryover requests. So we have a standing meeting in November to review any requests that come through. Judy is working right now on aggregating the bank grant data, and we have evaluations that are due in a month. She's already aggregated all the data from the previous cycles, but we wanted to add in the ones that are due that would be through December 2020. So she's going to aggregate the data, and then we wanted to put it together to package it in a PowerPoint, a short report. Once that's done, then we'll call maybe a meeting to review that. But if it takes a little bit longer, then perhaps we might roll it into the November meeting. If we can get it done quicker, then we'll call an ad hoc meeting to review that. But if not, we won't reconvene until November for this committee.
If the
Before we
commission,
adjourn-
if the commission approves this motion that we just made, when would we need to talk about a distribution plan? Well, can all of that wait till November?
Yeah, I think that all can wait till November. And I need to check with Brady. I don't think the commission needs to actually approve your motion. I think we share it as an update because you're not recommending a distribution plan. So there's nothing to approve. But let me check with Brady. So we might need to, and that's the technicality that Brady and I will work out, whether they have to officially approve that motion that you just passed or whether we have an update. But yes, we wouldn't in November, when we reconvene officially, then staff will have updates for you. And maybe at that time, we would want to move forward with the development of an RFP next year, or maybe it's to decide, let's wait another year and revisit in 2022 what to do.
So you guys will put together all of this stuff in regards to a distribution plan and in November?
Well, no,
you
it
share?
depends. It depends on kind of if it seems like it's a lot still unknown, then the recommendation may be, let's revisit it in 2022 before we do all that research. We don't want to really commit right now, Herman, because we don't know how it's going to play out the next 6 months or 12 months. But if it's moving in that direction, then we would package it more for you.
Okay.
Is that
This is
comfortable
Bob.
for everyone?
But my question is not about next meeting, but it's an additional question. So after we schedule next meeting, or we're clear on that, then I got a question before we adjourn. Kim?
Well, do you want to throw out your
Okay.
question now?
Okay, yeah. Bank grants was, it seems, established on the basis of a lawsuit and settlement of a lawsuit. We also, in some of our memo and discussion today, talked of possible unforeseen, dangers or disasters, and we talked of the possibility of foreclosures. So would bank grants be the committee to have jurisdiction if there is some other future lawsuit soon about maybe inappropriate foreclosures by a bank or some other financial institution? Or would we have to go about establishing another committee? I'm looking to see that we don't figuratively spend time or waste time trying to start anew with something unrelated to bank grants, but still as a basis of a lawsuit and inappropriate bank activity. And that's not
it depends.
That's not a discussion for now or decision. I just think I want for me to know and for us to know, would this continue if there's some other lawsuit over a kerfluffle?
That would be up to the commission. The
Yeah.
commission could use this, the fact that this committee is already structured, this committee could be assigned additional duties by the commission as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's
So
all. Thank you.
just for clarity for me is that there's nothing else this committee needs to do until November.
Yeah, except if we might call it, like, again, an ad hoc meeting to go over if we're able to put together the aggregated data before November. If not, if it's looking like it's coming closer to November, we'll just roll into November to not bother you with an extra meeting.
Thank you. Move to adjourn.
Any
I'll
other?
second that. I mean, since we don't need to meet to November, we might as well. Yeah.
Okay, so the meeting is closing at 11:15 a.m. See you all on Friday, I guess, the commission
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
Great.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
everyone.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you, Kim.
Aye.
Aye.